Well, welcome everyone to Women on Wealth. And I am really excited to have today Pam Keough with us, who is president and CEO at Make-A-Wish Foundation of Connecticut. Many of you know that Make-A-Wish ensures that every child with a life-threatening illness gets the wish of their dreams. Pam has been with the organization for over 10 years. She has held previous roles. And Pam, you've been in every type of role: IT, finance, information officer, audit manager. Your background clearly has enabled you to fulfill this distinguished role. So congrats and welcome.
No, thank you. I like to say they used to do all those jobs that most people didn't like to do,
Yeah.
those operations ones. So yeah, I'm a recovering insurance executive who finally found the light. One day, as you can imagine, working in windowless rooms, on whiteboards. I spent a lot of time traveling, especially to India. I was doing a lot of outsourcing back in the day.
Wow.
One day I just said to my husband, like, if I die today, it's going to be really upsetting because I didn't really do anything meaningful. And
Yeah.
that started me on the path to try to figure out what to do.
Talk about a meaningful transition. Can you talk about how you ended up at Make-A-Wish?
Yeah, not the path that most people take. But what I did is I was turning a certain age. So I was really reflecting and trying to figure out what I want to do. And my family was having a great time. They were volunteering. I never had time. I was working too many hours. I was traveling too much. And I hired a coach, and a coach that really worked well.
Huh.
And we sat down and we zeroed in on what I want to do is work for a nonprofit, either helping children or animals.
Mm.
But at the time, my children were younger, so I didn't want to leave Connecticut.
Yeah.
So the old-fashioned way, we took out the computer. Well, what were all the nonprofits in Connecticut that dealt with children or animals? And we zeroed in, and I circled Make-A-Wish Connecticut, and I said, that's where I want to work.
Oh, wow.
With no experience in nonprofit.
Right.
So you can imagine it was a little bit hard. I'm like, great, and at the time, there were like 12 people. So I thought, well, they can afford me, but I got to figure out how to do this. And that started me on my journey, talking with certain other people who had made the transition. And in fact, I probably get a call once a week from someone, a friend of a friend, or a friend that I knew a while back who wants to make some type of changing move in their job. They're unhappy, they're tired, they want to do something more fulfilling. And unfortunately, I don't give them the advice that maybe they want to hear, because a lot of them are maybe too early in their career, or they still got young children. And I say, wait till your children are older. Wait till you've got college put aside, then make the move.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, you got the financial head on you. I love it.
I exactly. And of course, I didn't heed my own advice. So maybe that's, and I kind of, well, it's all going to work out somehow. And it does work out. It's amazing when you just, visualize things and you put your mind to it, and things that you thought were important in life,
right,
weren't as important.
Yeah.
And
yeah. And you bring up a topic that I hear all the time, especially from women. And I always think it's interesting when I ask individuals like yourself how you got to where you are. It almost always starts, well, not the way you would have expected it. Right.
Yep.
So
I had no experience in nonprofit. So I would say too, that if you really want to do that, go volunteer in an organization, and roles do open up. The other thing I hear is people want to start at the top. You got to take a chance, right? So I left the insurance world to have a 3-month engagement with Make-A-Wish.
Yes, you mentioned that. I'm glad you bring it up. Yeah.
And I didn't know what was going to happen, and I didn't know if there's a job at the end, but it turned into the COO role, which within 9 months turned into the CEO role. So it did work out, but I had to take a leap of faith and kind of leave something that was a sure thing to make it happen.
Yeah, you were bold. I love it. Well, and can you talk a little bit about how Make-A-Wish is structured today, just from like a large corporate level?
Sure. So we're what's called a federated model. So I hate to liken to a franchise, but it kind of is that. So the mothership is in Phoenix, Arizona. That's where the first wish happened. So that's where it was a group of 5 individuals who found out about a kid who was very sick and wanted to be an Arizona police officer. They got together, they made him a little uniform. They had a bake sale, raised some money, and Chris graciously passed away a couple weeks later. but they said, let's do this again.
Yeah.
And then back in the day, NBC magazine came calling and said, did an article. And then people started calling them saying, can we start chapters?
Oh,
And now
wow.
it's 42 years later, there's 58 chapters, granted over 500,000 wishes. And
Wow.
that's just how it started. If you've read the book Good to Great, right? That was the tipping point.
Yes, absolutely. I love that book. And so there's one chapter in Connecticut, correct?
There's one chapter in Connecticut, but in New York, there's 5. It was like organically, it just popped up and all over the country. In fact, there's also Make-A-Wish International, but it's part of like a separate group and a separate charter. And so we just cover Make-A-Wish Connecticut right now. And like I said, we're a federated model. So we have a national office that provides branding, which is great. Celebrity access, the celebrity doesn't want 58 chapters calling them.
Yes.
And then, but we have our own board of directors. We have our own P&L, and we can act independently within certain guidelines.
Okay, that's great. And I know we'll talk about your P&L in a second, but one of the things I noticed on your website was there's a really interesting video that discusses how studies are showing how creating a wish for a child creates strength and hope and determination. It was a very impressive video. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so at Make-A-Wish, we always knew that wishes created some type of strength, joy, and hope for these children, but we never really had the scientific data behind it. And in fact, when I apply for grants and things, right, there's no box that you can check wish.
Yeah. It's
just, your financial literacy, are you health, health services, are you? And so to have this data behind us is what we always knew. In fact, out of Arizona, there was a study that he created. He took 500 kids, and half had a wish and half did not have a wish. And what he realized is, and it started with one of his kids went to meet his famous basketball player and came back, and there was truly no sign of his disease, this rare disease his child had.
Oh, wow.
And he said, what happened here? And it just, so there's some things, I call it the wish magic, but then there's also these kids, it gives them something to look forward to, right? They're going to comply with their medications, because if they can go have their wish, they have to do all those things.
Right.
And it just gives them some, just some hope in their day. So we're happy we have more studies. I think there'll be more down the road, but right now, we've got a few that are just, we're very pleased with them.
And how recent are these studies?
They're definitely a few years old. I would say at this point, it's the time in the last few years is kind of a little squishy, but
they're
probably about 5 years old. Is the recent one.
Yeah.
But we struggle, like, do we pay for a study? Do we have a university do it and just support them? So those are the kind of the conversations we're having right now.
Yeah, those are the really interesting conversations I'm sure you have with your board. And let me circle back with that, because your 2022 audit was incredibly impressive in regards to the finances. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it's great you looked at the recent one. If the couple of years before that weren't so great with the pandemic.
You had a good excuse.
Yeah, so we had a couple things happen. Obviously, people are coming back to events, which has been great.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, some of the events we lost. There are people who do events for us, and they'll, for example, do a golf tournament. And a couple just said with the pandemic, like, I had a good 10-year run, retired, I think we're done. And some of those didn't come back, which is too bad. But what we also did is we started a capital campaign, and it was the first one in the history of Make-A-Wish Connecticut. And believe it or not, so the pandemic starts, our capital campaign pretty much started the same time. And I said to my husband, I just might get fired for this one because it's not the best timing.
Oh.
And there were 2 really quiet months after the campaign launched that I thought, wow, we're just not going to raise a dime here. Yeah. And we have this tremendous building we have to transform into this great wishing place.
Yeah.
And then I got my first donor, and she came, she saw, and I remember we were wearing a mask, and she said, I'm going to talk to my daughter and I'll get back to you. And I was really hoping for 500,000 from her, which was a lot. The most she had ever given was 100,000 in a year. And I said, well, if I could at least get 250. And she came back and said, I see the vision. I'm giving you $1 million.
Oh, that's amazing.
So then we were off and running, and people really do want their name on something.
Yeah.
be remembered, some legacy for their family or someone else. So that was a surprising part that we did very, very well. You'll see some of those numbers reflected in our financial statements.
That's great. And how much of the money that comes in is utilized towards the actual wishes? Can you talk a little bit about the breakdown of the finances?
Yeah. So right now it's at 71% of every dollar you give to Make-A-Wish goes towards the programs. So
Wow.
that's 8% is really just to administrative and salaries, and the rest help with fundraising that you have to spend some money to raise some money.
Yeah.
We've gotten that as high as 80%. So we will get back to that. Obviously, with a campaign, you have a little bit more expenses on the fundraising side.
Sure.
You will get closer to the 80%. And you know, really, when you donate to any charity, you should really look at GuideStar or Charity Navigator, because sometimes, although the title says it sounds great, when you actually look into it, it's not a legitimate organization or doesn't give very much to the programs.
Yeah, it's important to look under the hood. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. And let's talk about the wishes. This is so how does what does the financing of a wish look like?
So the average cost of a wish is about $10,000. Although, you know, we're really, it's been increased to about 13 the last couple of years. So we struggle. 10,000's a nice number, easy number.
Yeah.
But things have gone up. Hopefully they're starting to come back down. I don't know if they'll come back to that number that we were hoping to 10,000, but that's what it costs. You can imagine a family, it isn't mom, dad, and 2 kids anymore.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a complicated family. We've had split families where dad goes Saturday to Wednesday to Disney and mom comes Wednesday to Saturday. Try to work, you know, things out best we can. We have a family of 8 going to Hawaii the next couple of weeks.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Yeah. And I like the idea of, well, we'll circle back on the 10,000 at the end. So, but it's nice to have a round number. And I know each story is incredibly impactful in their own unique way, but are there any that kind of stand out that you can talk about as examples?
Well, I'm a big Red Sox fan. So one of the biggest wishes we did was Thomas, who has Duchenne muscular dystrophy, loved to play baseball, but was losing his ability to do that. And what he wanted to do was look out his bedroom window every day and see Fenway Park. And so when we talked to the community about that, in 35 days, we built a mini replica Fenway Park in his backyard.
Oh, wow.
And we had the University of Hartford team come play wiffle ball there. We've had fundraisers, and Thomas is still enjoying it today, which is great. So that's one that just near and dear to me.
Yeah.
But you know, it's hard to just pick one, but there's just so many. Half of our wishes are Disney, and to see these kids light up when their pictures are down there with the princesses or whoever they're with, it's just, you know, amazing. And to see a whole family just relaxing for once.
Yeah. I guess I shouldn't be surprised that half are Disney, but that clearly shows how you get to 10,000 very quickly with a family.
It does. And, you know, especially the little kids, like that's really what they want.
Yeah.
But then there's some of the older kids that have really unique wishes too. And I blame HGTV for this, but a lot of times they want a shed or a room makeover, tree house, and they're getting to be pretty elaborate like these kids. It's not like your simple thing that we used to be, but we just did one. We did this tree house in Litchfield, and it came out beautifully. And sometimes these kids just want a space of their own, that they're sharing a room with siblings, that they just need a place to go to, you know, themselves. So there's a lot more of those than what we used to have.
Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah, maybe with the pandemic too, that was one of the drivers, as you know, people we were all used to spending time in our own way in our house. So
yeah, no, I think so. So if anyone has any skills, you know, electrical, carpentry, those are the things that we're looking for now. It's really changed the face of our needs.
Interesting. Sure. Well, and that's a perfect segue, because I was gonna, you know, the question, of course, is how can people help?
Right. And I get that every day. And sometimes, people don't know how to help, but it's amazing that, you know, we have 400 wishes in the queue right now. So there's probably something that you can do, whether it's the girl who just wants to go to the beach house for a week, and maybe you know someone who has a beach house, Whether it's the kid who wants what do I want to say, like a little mini bike that they're old enough, it's an older kid. It's goods and services are hard to come by, but
Right.
sometimes you just know people who can help. And it really is, even if it's a swing set, we can use a group to come out and, level the yard. I mean, there are 1-day projects, there's multiple day projects. We've got office volunteers. I've got some that they man our desk every day and they greet kids, or they're giving tours to Wish kids, which is great. And then I've got summer interns too. If you've got kids that are in college that are looking for something to do to give back, we've got a bunch of them. So
Okay.
that's how we make things happen. We've got about 400 volunteers
In Connecticut.
in Connecticut.
Holy
And
cow.
we always can use more
And you said there's 400 wishes in the queue
in the queue. Yeah.
in Connecticut.
Yes. It's ballooned because of the pandemic. We decided we could either, 70% of the wishes involve some sort of travel, because even if you meet a celebrity,
Yeah.
you have to go where they are. They don't come to you typically. So during the pandemic, they weren't allowed to travel. Their doctors wouldn't let them travel. So we said, you know what, we're not going to force them to change their wish. We'll be ready when they can. And we knew we were going to have this big pipeline balloon.
Right.
So right now we've got 400 in the queue.
Dare I ask, what would be a more normal number of wishes?
Yeah, probably 200.
Okay.
Yeah, about 200.
That's still too many. Holy cow.
And new ones are coming in every day. So
Yeah. Yeah. Do you ever feel in your role that you're settled?
No, in fact, one of the bigger burnout roles in the chapters are wish coordinators. So these are the people who really work on these wishes. And so they just get one done, another one comes in, and you can never, unfortunately, we wish we didn't have these jobs because we wouldn't have sick kids.
Yeah.
But you can't, they just keep coming.
Wow.
And that's why we need the help of all these volunteers, because it's a lot for a small staff.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you talked about the capital campaign, and obviously large donations are always welcome. But when you and I first had our conversation, you mentioned to me how impactful the small donations were as well from a monetary standpoint.
Right. Some people will say, well, I can only give $25. I can only give $50. What's that going to do? And you'd be surprised when we get the mail every day, the stack of checks that come in for the small amount add up. They add up quite a bit. If people with social media that have followers, we had one boy in Greenwich, Stephen, he wanted to raise enough money for a wish before he passed away. And he was every day on YouTube, and he would draw some art with his mom, and he got some followers, which is great. And PewDiePie, I don't know if you know PewDiePie, but it's one of the social media influencers that's pretty big.
Okay.
PewDiePie saw it, and PewDiePie posted, like, everyone, can you give $5 to this kid?
Oh, wow.
Within like 24 hours, there was $30,000.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I will have to ask my girls if they know PewDiePie. They may be embarrassed that I don't know. But that's an amazing story.
Yeah.
And when you think about these small dollars adding up, do you know how it fits into the larger picture of the total money that comes into Connecticut?
Yeah, I probably don't. I mean, I always like to say that of our funding, a third comes from individuals, a third comes from events, and a third comes from corporate in general.
Yeah.
But someone asked me, so maybe the other way, they said, how many major donors do you have? And a major gift typically we define as 10,000 and above.
Yeah.
And I said, well, look at my fingers. I can fit them on these hands.
Yeah.
And they're like, wow.
Wow.
Or they think we have major corporation in Connecticut. Gosh, the top 100, you must be. Well, again, on my hands are who supports us.
Exactly. Wow. Okay. That's a great way to think about it.
Yep.
So the little dollars are important.
They are important. Yep. And it's, like I said, it's Make-A-Wish. It's great, but we also need to change the conversation that it's just not nice. It's really important to fund these wishes. And that's some of the conversation we're starting to have.
That's great. And do you have an idea of the 400 that you mentioned wishes that are in the queue? How many of them are sort of already financed and ready to go? If that makes sense.
Yeah. Very, I would say, I just was talking to my team about this. I think we've got about 75 right now funded, ready to go.
Okay.
And the summer's really busy. So there's a lot happening this summer because the kids have missed so much school
Yeah.
that they don't want to miss school anymore. Though I tell them, I don't know if you really want to go to Disney in the summer because it's super crowded.
Right.
School, but they do go. So we've got about 75 now, and we have a program called Adopt a Wish. So if people really do resonate or want to do something, for their company in their town, or just a group gets together, or people will say to me, I like music wishes. If you ever have a music wish come, or my dentist said to me, well, I've been doing this for 10 years. If you ever have a dental wish, let me know.
Yeah.
Sure enough, a girl, because of her treatments, it had caused her teeth to deteriorate.
Wow.
And her wish was for a great smile. 60
Oh.
years old. My dentist, who's a phenomenal cosmetic dentist, did about $10,000 worth of work, no charge to Make-A-Wish. And now we have this girl with this beautiful smile.
Oh, that's incredible. Okay.
So it's kind of anything you can think of. There's people out, we can make some connections out there.
Yeah, no, Pam, I don't know how you don't get emotional every day. It's
a feel good. The volunteers are on the front line a lot.
Yeah.
Although I do get to meet a bunch of kids in my world, but it's, we come in and we're giving them something good. So people say to me all the time, like, God, your job must be so sad. And I said, no, honestly, we come in at a really good part and we give them a boost.
Yeah.
And that makes, us feel well. And it's great when I see kids when they're older too, and they come back and I'm like, oh, you have a mustache now. That's so great.
Oh. So
Yeah.
you do keep in touch with a lot of the kids.
So that's part of why we built the wishing place.
Yeah.
We felt, although Wish is amazing and transformative, we're Make-A-Wish Connecticut. And, what can we do better? And the board said, we can create a wishing place that they come back as alumni and their families and their siblings. By the way, these siblings get dragged through a lot. We're having programs for them. So at Halloween, we do a trunk or treat. We do movies in the summer, a drive-in theater. We've got a big event with WW in the winter. It's a winter wonderland they come through. So we're expanding more of those.
Okay.
But we're on the right track.
Yeah.
And to see these kids come back, and we have got 4,000 alumni.
Holy cow.
Yeah. And then some of them want to give back. We have a group of 20-year-olds now who are trying to fund a wish themselves. They're like, well, we can pay it forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those in Connecticut, where is the wishing place located?
We're in Trumbull, Connecticut, 56 Commerce Drive. Anyone can come. In fact, I have people that will pull up and like, what is this place? Can we come in? And we, we'll give them tours if there's not a kid in here. Like today I had a very compromised kid, so kind of shut down a couple floors, and with masks, someone just took them through. But we're also like a safe place, and we follow the hospital protocols of cleanliness. And it's just a place that they can come either to explore what their wish would be, or once they figured out their wish. We've delivered tons of puppies here in the last couple of years, which has been great.
Oh my gosh.
It's so much fun.
Pam, I love this. Thank you. And you and I have talked a lot about this. I'm working with your team right now. I am in the process of creating my own fundraising for Make-A-Wish Connecticut, which I'm nervous to say out loud, but let's go through it.
It comes true. That's my thing.
Yeah. And so I as you know, and some of the listeners know, I've been competing in triathlons now for about 8 years. And I've done more recently for years, the half iron distance triathlons. And I'm checking off my bucket list on November 4th to do my first full Ironman down in Florida. It's the 140.6 in Panama Beach. Which if you're not familiar with triathlons, 140.6 represents the distance. So it's 2.4 mile swim. It's 112 mile bike followed by a full marathon, which is 26.2 miles. So that is my goal. And as you and I talked, Pam, I would love to raise money for at least one wish, which my goal is to, hit over that $10,000, 13 if we need to. And I'm going to reach out to everyone listening and family and friends. And if, please help donate. Every dollar, as you said, counts. And if you are charitably inclined and you have a donor advised fund, your team has been helping me set that up so that you can utilize your donor advised fund for the donation as well. So I'm excited, Pam. Your team has been fantastic.
Well, Jelena, I mean, that's amazing that you're doing that. And thank you to put it with a component for Make-A-Wish. And so as someone told me, that do some things like that too, they're like, well, you know what, the kids go through a lot, I can go through a lot.
I think I'm going to need a lot of motivation to finish in hopefully 13 hours. And so I thought, what more of a motivation than this? So it was such amazing timing when we met, as I was thinking through. I just signed up for the race. So I think this is perfect. So thank you as well. And let's see if we can't get that.
All right. I think you're going to do it. I'm just,
well, Pam, thank you so much for your insight. I love you. You chartered your own destiny. You followed your heart. You were bold. And I just can't wait to see what Make-A-Wish in Connecticut continues to do. So congrats.
Oh, good. Well, we're going to get all these 400 wishes done.
I hope so.
They deserve it. The kids deserve it. We're working hard every day. And you know what? So thank you. So it's folks like you that make it all happen.
Oh, thank you.